Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of The Drop. We got Greg Wyshynski. We got Arda Ocal, and it's time to tank the show, Wish. All right? Let's get the numbers to 10 or 20 views per episode so we can have the first overall pick in the podcast draft. All right? Are you on board with me?
I feel like the process has already started, Arda.
The process has already begun. Let's go.
Trust the process, Arda. Trust it.
Why are we saying this? Big topic of conversation. NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman had this to say about teams tanking in the National Hockey League. Quote, nobody tanks because we have a weighted lottery. You're not going to lose games to increase your odds by a couple of percentage points. That's silly. And frankly, suggesting tanking, I believe, is inconsistent with the professionalism that our players and our coaches have. Nobody tanks.
Nobody
goes on. Nobody. Okay? Not a single team tanks in the history of sports and life, let alone the National Hockey League. What are your thoughts on what the commissioner most recently said about the notion of losing as many games as possible so you can give yourself the best position to get a guy like Connor Bedard?
This is going to shock you, Arda, but I think what Bettman said was very lawyerly. Now, as usual, like there's a little bit of truth to what he's saying. And when he says that players and coaches don't tank, he's completely correct, sort of. Players don't tank. I still remember going to Buffalo Sabres camp the year that they were going to try to draft Connor McDavid by being as bad as possible. I remember talking to Drew Stafford, who was a player for them at that point, and giving him my theory that the team was tanking. And I still remember the fires of an erupting Hawaiian volcano igniting in his eyes, Arda, as he told me that players do not tank. And it remains something seared into my brain that these guys take it all very passionately. They're all out, trying to win. Many of them aren't even going to be there after the team drafts the foundational franchise player. They're free agents. They all want to win. It's not the players tanking. It's not usually the coaches tanking either. These guys also want to win every game for the benefit of their jobs. But sometimes you get coaches that are going to be there throughout the rebuild, And then as the season gets later, you start to see them saying things like, we're going to play the younger guys. See what we've got in the system. Now, primarily, that is true, that they're going to try to see what they've got in the younger guys for next year. But one of the ancillary benefits, of course, is that your probability for winning those games drops precipitously if you're playing younger, inexperienced players. So the players don't tank. The coaches sort of don't tank. You know who tanks, though, Mr. Bettman? The general managers tank. The owners signing off on the GM's plans, they tank. When a guy builds a roster that he knows is not going to be competitive for a playoff spot or the Stanley Cup, he knows what he's doing. When he has goaltending that's 20,000 leagues under replacement, he knows what he's doing. Tanking exists whether the lottery is weighted or not. It's just not the players or the coaches necessarily doing it.
Players are playing for contracts. Of course, they have to think of themselves. They're not going to be with the team as long-term as the owners are. The owners are going to be there as long as they want to be, really, right? And that's going to be, in many cases, years,
either until they sell the team or they're indicted. One of those two things are the only way they're not going to be the owner anymore.
Exactly.
Or death,
so naturally, it would be in their best interest to want to be in a position for long-term success. And spoiler alert, Connor Bedard this year would probably equal long-term success, at least a great foundational piece, a generational piece, a leadership piece. So I completely agree with what you're saying there. I will ask you this. Obviously, with many fan bases around the league, we see fans embracing this, right? Embrace the tank. Yay, let's cheer a loss. We're one step closer to Bedard in this year's case in the 2023 draft. When is it okay for a team to tank?
I think it's okay for a team to tank whenever they want to, whenever they feel like it is time for them to enter a new cycle of competitiveness and try to get that foundational franchise player that they need to contend. Look at the teams that have won the Stanley Cup in the last several seasons, Arda, okay? The Colorado Avalanche, Nathan McKinnon, okay? The Tampa Bay Lightning, Steven Stamkos and Victor Hedman. The Washington Capitals, Alex Ovechkin. The Pittsburgh Penguins, Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin. These are all the top players, the foundations on which these championships teams are built, and they were all acquired through high draft picks, usually after seasons in which the teams decided not to be competitive. Fans know this. I think one of the great misconceptions in sports is that fans won't be down for a rebuild or a tank. You see teams all being very hesitant to do it. They want to just be, for lack of a better term, a little bit pregnant, and like get around the bubble and contend for playoffs and not necessarily be terrible for a stretch because they think fans won't handle it. And yeah, your ticket sales will go down, your merch sales will go down, but in the long run, fans will stomach it. You're not going to lose their loyalty. You might lose their money temporarily, but you won't lose their loyalty. And at the end of the day, it will benefit you in the long run to try to go for that foundational franchise player than to just be a bubble team.
This is a sentiment that I agree with that's floating online right now. It is far worse to barely miss the playoffs than to be in the bottom 5 of the league at the end of the season.
Right.
For that exact reason. So,
right. Exactly.
Do fans like tanking? I think yes. I do believe that, especially if you look at your team on paper and you realize that this is not a team that's going to compete. This is maybe not a team that's even going to battle for a wild card spot. In that scenario, you want your team to be as bad as possible because you want your team the best opportunity to succeed. Guess who else is going to be with the team long term as well as the owners? The fans, because there's long-standing rules, unwritten rules, where you just don't switch teams. These are things that we know as sports fans, so they're going to be there for the long haul. So, yeah, fans do like tanking in certain situations.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Bettman brought up the lottery. And obviously, the lottery was instituted to try to discourage tanking from teams. I think maybe it's done it a little bit in the sense that teams know if they finish rock bottom, they're not automatically getting the first pick. But I don't think it really affects a draft like this one, where it's not just Connor Bedard. It's also Adam Fantilli. It's also some other players that are at the top of the draft that are going to be able to help teams in a really big way in the very near future. I mean, we saw that with the McDavid draft. It wasn't just McDavid, it was also Eichel. There's all these examples through the years of it's not just being about the top guy, it's also being about the top 3 or the top 4. And if you're in the draft lottery, that's what you're aiming for. I know there are people that believe that we should do the lottery a different way. There's something called the gold plan. I've been the biggest critic of this thing through the years, Arda, this idea of the amount of points that your team achieves after being eliminated should be the determining factor in where they draft. I think that's an idiotic plan. I think it expects bad teams to all of a sudden be good. I think it expects players, like we said, that aren't going to be there to experience the spoils of losing because they're on another team as a free agent or through a trade to play as hard as they can for the future of a franchise they don't care about. It's a dumb plan. Lottery's fine. It does what it needs to do. It mixes up things. It doesn't reward the same team over and over unless you're the Edmonton Oilers. But for the most part, I think it does its job. And it's just that teams are willing to make the sacrifices to see if they can win the system.
So those are our thoughts on tanking. We'd like to hear your thoughts. What do you think about tanking? Does it exist? Should it exist? Let us know in the comments. And now on to this. Always happy to be joined here on The Drop on ESPN by Kristen Shilton, who is one of our NHL on ESPN reporters based in Toronto, my hometown. Always love to have the Toronto vibes on the show. Kristen, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you guys?
I'm great. I'm not. I've never. I didn't live in the 6. They call it the 6th, right? I never lived in the 6. I'm a statey boy.
Good job.
The statey boy.
You lived in the swamp. That's a conversation for
That's
another
not.
day.
That is. I visited the swamp. I lived in a part of New Jersey called Central New Jersey that our colleague Emily Kaplan claims does not exist. She's very wrong. The governor of New Jersey himself said that Central New Jersey exists.
Okay, did you get all the New Jersey talk out of your system here so we can talk hockey? Or
but Dougie Hamilton. No, I'm fine.
Oh
yeah, we can talk other teams. It's fine.
How about we talk about we were just talking about tanking. How about we talk about a team that might firmly be in that conversation? The Vancouver Canucks. The coaching situation, Kristen. What a carousel, what a saga we saw with Bruce Boudreau and the fans and the chants and his heartfelt goodbye and the Brick Tocchet coming in as head coach and being booed and what he's been saying in the media after game 2. I'd love to get your thoughts on the entire saga, and also Rick Tocchet as the choice to be the head coach for this team?
Yeah, it was such a circus, and it transcended I think sport, the way that Bruce Boudreau was treated. I think even if you don't follow the NHL, you noticed the way that the Canucks just dragged out this process, and it did become so emotional, and it did become something that really just, it tugged at your heartstrings no matter who you were, because you just think that Boudreau is such a hockey lifer. He loves the game. You'd have to drag him out of an arena. I think, he'll be the one turning the lights off at the last gig, that he could possibly get. So it really was painful, I think, to watch the process play out the way that it did. And especially, it's never a good thing when you're a team that's now paying 3 coaches. You're paying Travis Green, you're paying Bruce Boudreau, and now you're paying Rick Tocchet. And that brings me to Rick Tocchet. What about this situation is appealing when you're thinking they had Travis Green and they fired him for Bruce Boudreau, who they've now subsequently fired very quickly for you? And each guy felt like, I'm going to be the difference. I'm going to be the coach that can come in and turn this franchise around. And why is it that that's not happening? Is it a player problem? Is it a front office issue? What's the deal? And for Tocchet, it's not like he's had enormous success as a head coach. He's obviously had great success, or more success, I should say, as an assistant. But what appeals about stepping into this situation that is going to be volatile because it's been created that way? And then now you also are tasked with essentially doing one better maybe than what Boudreau did last year, where he comes in, the Canucks go on this amazing run, they miss playoffs by 2 points. Is that what they're expecting out of Tocchet? Because because you get lucky and you play you play the Chicago Blackhawks in your first game as a head coach, and that's some low-hanging fruit. I don't know, guys. Like, I'm looking at this scenario from Rick Tocchet's perspective, and I'm thinking, yes, it's an NHL head coaching job, but what is this going to take out of me in order to, turn the fan base around, turn the team around? It's a lot of pressure. And is it worth it? I don't know. What are you?
Cushy TV gig, like you could stay there for a long time. Like Mike Milbury was on NBC for 12 years. Like that dude, Tocchet could have been set up there on a TV gig for a lot. The only thing I could think of is that he has a lot of faith in Jim Rutherford and Patrick Galvin from their days with the Penguins. He probably assumes that they can keep that wackadoo owner at bay, so they can get some consistency and try to push forward. And the only thing I really like about this, because there's a lot I hate about this whole Vancouver thing, is the concept of the coach, the GM, the president of hockey operations. They're all rowing in the same direction. They're all trying to instill the same culture. They're all trying to do that Penguins thing they did when they won back-to-back cups. You didn't have that with Boudreau because Boudreau wasn't hired by that group. So that's the only positive I can pull out of this. Speaking of positive, Kristen, my God, the Leafs. Mitch Marner taking Bobby Orr photos with overtime game winners. Statues will be built.
Significance, by the way. Let's just be clear,
completely.
okay? Random game in January, Stanley Cup clinching goal, same thing in Toronto.
Kristen, is this the year? And by is this the year, I mean, is this the year they get out of the first round?
Well, I mean, Timothy Liljegren tying the game with that goal on Igor Shesterkin. I mean, come on. That's if that doesn't tell you that this is the Leaf year, I don't know what does. No, I have 2 words for you when it comes to the Leafs in the playoffs. And that is killer, period, instinct, period. Because let's go back to game 4 against Tampa in the first round last year. The completely listless Toronto Maple Leafs lose 7-3 to a Tampa team that just on every single level was better than them. But on the key point was every member of their fourth line scored a goal in that game. Yeah. They were dominant across the board, and the Leafs finally were getting the contributions they needed from their top 6. Their gold, like Jack Campbell gets pulled for Eric Shalgren. That's not good. Their goaltending depth was poor. But it wasn't the Stars' fault. It was the depth. It was the bottom 6 that wasn't holding up. Now, Sheldon Keefe, this year, what's he doing? He's tinkering constantly. Everyone's been on the fourth line. He's got Pontus Holbert. He's got Bobby McMahon. He's got Joey Anderson now. He's had Zach Aston Reese. it's like he's a mad scientist in there trying to make sure that they know what they have come playoffs. So you're not standing there looking around being like, who's going to score us, some goals that don't come from Marner or Matthews, whomever. But the reason I think, other than that this could be the year for the Leafs to get out of a first round, look at the way William Nylander is playing. He's got 57 points in 49 games. And it's not just the offense, guys. It's the timely contributions. He's scoring big goals. He's showing up as a two-way player. He's doing all the things Sheldon Keefe's been begging for the last several years. And John Tavares hasn't looked as good since his first year in Toronto, scoring 47 goals either. So it feels like it's aligning. Ilya Samsonov, look how great he's been. Matt Murray is just waiting for his chance to shine. I say this is the year. I think this is the depth that Toronto's needed. It's the right buy-in. Mitch Marner said they're tired. They're sick and tired of this feeling. Prove it.
All right. I love it. Yeah, you're like a coach in the locker room. That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm fired up. I'm going to run into a wall now. I'll be right back.
Are you ready?
Let's go. Just run into a wall. Kristen Shilton joining us, our esteemed colleague, ESPN writer for ESPN, obviously, for the NHL. Trade deadline, fast approaching, something you've covered many, many years. Is there a player, or pick a player, that fascinates you as we approach the deadline?
Well, I'm going to pick a player that I was lucky enough to cover for a couple of years, and that is Jonathan Toews. I picked him because when you think about a potential rental, or you think about a guy that you want to bring into a contending team, yes, there's a bit of a price ask there from Chicago potentially for him. But even if Toews isn't your elite centerman anymore, he's still a great two-way player. He's an elite face-off guy, which you always need when it comes to the postseason. And he's just a natural-born leader. He can bring a lot, I think, in a supporting role. But what can Chicago get for him at this point? And that's the fascinating part. A Bo Horvat, a Ryan O'Reilly, some of those other guys, a Vladimir Tarasenko, what they might fetch on the open market. But how does the league still view Jonathan Toews and what he can do after 3 Stanley Cup wins, after hundreds of playoff games, after all of the attention that he's drawn over the years, all of the success he's had? I would just want to see, A, if the Blackhawks can find a match, and B, what could Toews still get on the market? And what does that say about his body of work as opposed to just where he is right now? And I still think he could be a great ad for a playoff contender that really just wants that veteran leadership, that veteran guy who can win you faceoffs, can be great in the defensive zone, doesn't have to score you a bunch of goals. But hey, like I said, for the Leafs, you could always use a little bottom six scoring, right? Who doesn't need a key goal now and then?
There you go. For me, it's probably Timo Meier, just because I'm fascinated to see if he goes to a team that's contending, if a team like the Buffalo Sabres that might be in the Timo Meier business long-term go after him. And then also, how do you handle that gigantic RFA arbitration salary that he's due? It's going to be fascinating. We're all going to be at All-Star. It's going to be a real fun time. South Florida, baby. Arda and his Speedo on South Beach. Kristen.
Don't put that on the universe, man. Or
Kristen,
don't spoil our content plans for All-Star. Come on, man.
Kristen, which player are you most looking forward to seeing at the All-Star events?
All right, I could not pick one, so I made a power ranking because I'm the power rankings guru.
You are.
The NHL's ESPN coverage.
That's awesome.
I've picked my top 5. It's Mitch Marner in no particular order.
Okay.
Mitch Marner, Jack Hughes, Jason Robertson, Connor McDavid, and Matty Beniers. And I've picked, yes, it's all 5 forwards, but I think the All-Star game is built for forwards. It's built to show off what you do best, which is ridiculous things with a puck on your stick. Yep. I don't know how they do it. I'm just here to try to explain it to people. I'm trying to capture the spirit of the thing, but those are the players, guys, that I'm looking forward to seeing.
Yeah, I'll mooch off your list. It's Robertson. Yeah. It's Robertson for me. Like I'm dying. It feels like he's been on ESPN more than Stephen A. Smith this year. Like I feel like it's his time to shine, and this is the stage for it. So I'm excited to see what he pulls off the All-Star game.
Rightfully so, though. Jason Robertson is awesome. RoboCop is amazing. Thank you for allowing me to say Tage Thompson, though, because that guy, like, I will ride his coattails all day long. He is awesome. And I can't wait to see him in a format like this because TNT is dynamite, my friends. Center stage Thompson is what I like to call him. I'm all aboard that train. So I'm super excited to watch him. We look forward to seeing you at All-Star. Hopefully we get a chance to catch up. That'll be a lot of fun. But as Wish mentioned, Kristen will be there. Wish and I will be there. So we'll have a lot of coverage and a lot of great content on site at the All-Star game. Kristen Shilton, NHL writer for ESPN, one of our esteemed colleagues. Great to have you on the drop. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's so fun.
All right, time for Search for Merch. This is where teams or hockey adjacent companies send us their stuff so that we can showcase it on the show. And usually we give it away. Shout out to 47 brand. They sent us a nice care package here. We got some cool hats, retro inspired. We also have this, and I'm going to do a special giveaway for this one. We're not going to do it on the show today, but this is the cool Fisherman hoodie. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to an Islanders game before the end of the year. Wish, you're welcome to come as well. We went to one already. We'll just pick an Islanders game. And when we are there, I'm going to bring this hoodie with me. And I'm going to say, hey, I'm in the concourse after the second period. Whoever the first person to come up to me and to come up to us and say hello, you're getting this hoodie. So I'm going to do something like that.
I love it.
I want to save on the shipping costs. That's why. Shout out to that's really the reason why. Let's be honest.
I think. Listen, you and I both know that's a very legitimate and great reason.
Yeah, and we pay for our own shipping, which is fine. Anyway, in my opinion, the greatest man cave I have ever seen is the Habs man cave. You have to follow Sunil on Instagram. Literally look up Habs fan cave. It's not just hockey; it's sports. It's anything.
Wow. The
level of detail that this guy has put into his man cave is outstanding. I'm not going to get into the story of why I received this, but let's just say some good vibes were shared. He gave me a nice care package, which came in a nice Habs bag.
Wow.
The things I want to feature here are he gave me a couple of Major League socks. As you can see, we got these are awesome. I love this, and obviously Le Demo and Blonde, awesome. I love the I have Stanley Cup rings in my ears, wink, on the packaging here. We also have, this is very appropriate as an ESPNer. He also sent a Subinator shirt.
Oh, brilliant.
Which is cool. So shout out to Sunil, shout out to Habs Man Cave. Definitely check him out because it's, as a hockey fan, you'll be like, wow, this is heaven. Even if you're not a Habs fan, you'll be super impressed. So
you're giving away all that stuff on the show?
I will find a way to give this away. Yes.
You want to do another hashtag?
Yeah. You know what? Let's do. Actually, you know what we're gonna do a giveaway for? We're gonna do a giveaway for this right here. We're gonna do a giveaway for this Expos inspired Montreal Canadiens shirt right here.
Perfect.
So, what should the hashtag be?
Hashtag climb in my cave. CLMIMB. CLMB. Climb, like climbing in my cave.
That's not
hashtag
CLMB.
Climb
okay.
in my cave.
Okay. Learn how to spell it right.
T-shirt.
Just look it up online if you don't. Yes.
Climb it's tough to really it's not climb. I didn't want to I've seen people know how to spell. I don't know, man. It's the internet.
Anyway. Yes. That was funny. Climb in my cave. I will send that out for the Expos inspired Canadiens shirt. Puck headlines. Let's talk about what's happening around the league. Dateline, Boston. The Bruins are on pace for 66 wins, 140 points. Greg Wyshynski, do they get there?
NHL records both, if they make them. Yeah, I think they do. They're good. They're real good. I've seen the Bruins on a number of occasions, live and in person. They are a confident bunch, a competent bunch, and they know how to win hockey games. And the thing that makes them so scary is the depth. I mean, we've already seen them thrive without Charlie McAvoy in the lineup. They, God forbid, lost any of the other veterans in their lineup for an extended period of time. They have players that can move up and play in those positions. The rich probably will get richer at the trade deadline too, as they're all in for this season. I'll give you the proxy for me, man. As I was watching him the other night against the Rangers, like 95 Devils vibes, in the sense of they dictate terms to their opponents. They play the game exactly as they want it played. And if you somehow manage to defeat them, good on you, because they're not giving you an inch. I think they're going to be a record-setting team by the end of the season.
And they also conquered their only challenge this season, which was winning a game in Canada. So now that has been cleared, it's smooth sailing for the Boston Bruins for the rest of the season. Dateline Stadium Series. The jerseys have been revealed.
Yeah.
For the game between the Capitals and the Hurricanes. Scale of 1 to 10, Wish, where do you rank them?
So my scale is based on the Stadium Series, because
Okay.
I think one of the big misconceptions I've seen online since these jerseys came out are people not recognizing that the Stadium Series is the weirdo game. It's the place where it's not a place for your throwback. This is what the 1922 Penguins look like. It's not that. That's the Winter Classic. The Stadium Series is, taking a hit of some hallucinogen and looking at a logo and being like, what could I do to make this weirder? And then put it on a jersey. And that's exactly what happened here. To that end, the Capitals jersey, it's like a 9. Okay. They took the secondary logo, the Weagle, they spread it out through the entirety of the jersey. It's such a striking logo to begin with. For a road jersey in an outdoor game, that thing is dope. I love it. The Hurricanes one, I'm going to say it's like a 4. I like the novelty of putting the Hurricanes logo on an all-black jersey for the first time in franchise history. But dude, the Stadium Series is about grandiose explorations of art. It's not about streetwear. And I felt like the Carolina Hurricanes went way more streetwear than you should usually do in the Stadium Series games.
Why isn't it about streetwear? Why couldn't it be just up to the artist? You just said it's like a whole unique abstract concept.
I think that's fine, but I think that's good for a third jersey or an alternate jersey or reverse retro jersey. I think in the Stadium Series, the difference between seeing an art house band in a small club versus seeing Freddie Mercury's Queen at Live Aid. Freddie Mercury's Queen at Live Aid is the Stadium Series jersey. It is something that you should be able to glance at from the top of the upper deck and say, that is, I can see every etching, I can see every logo, and it plays big. Look at the jerseys in Stadium Series history. They all play big, and I didn't think this jersey played big enough.
Dateline South Florida, the All-Star Game Skills Competition will have some new events. This was first reported by our own Greg Wyshynski.
Hey, that's me.
We got hockey golf, which is going to be a great, actually, that's a terrific idea for South Florida. My favorite event, and I hope we get to experience this, the dunk tank.
Yeah.
That's going to be awesome. Also, a goalie shooting competition. So, with all of that said, we got some fun, unique events announced. What skills competition event that is not at the All-Star Game do you believe should be and you want to see?
Well, they've done a good job giving the goalies something to do. Like that shooting event is going to be, I think, a real novelty and a lot of fun. But I wish that we could see these guys out of their gear, showing off their hockey skills. Like, I know it's going to look weird to see that. I mean, it'll be like seeing a turtle out of its shell. But I wish we could see something where like the goalies are shooting on the skaters and the skaters are the ones wearing the goalie gear. Will never happen because, groin tears. But if we ever got a chance to see it, it'd be a blast. And if we can't get that, then at least bring back one of the greatest things they ever did in All-Star history, and they stopped doing it, the goalie races. Remember when those guys were in full gear, skating the full lap? It was like watching guys in sumo suits doing it. Man, that was a ton of fun. That was back in like the Tim Thomas years, I think. They should bring that back. Give the goalies more to do besides, being props for skill position players.
I do like Roberto Luongo being involved. I think that's
cool.
So I'm a big fan of the stunt casting at the All-Star Game. I liked Trevor Zegras last year. I like the influencers coming in. I'm a big fan of all that. I'm actually surprised that we haven't heard more about the breakaway competition. I honestly want that to be as important as the dunk competition in the NBA. I know I keep saying that, but honestly, it has the potential to be the most creative thing and a destination event that we see every year at the All-Star game. And I just want, is it even happening? Like
it is happening. It's definitely happening. Yeah.
Okay.
And we'll know the competitors and they'll have all their gimmicks and stuff. But, you know, one thing I think is really interesting, I always like to kind of share some of the things I learn here or there on this show. I've heard that they're going to split up maybe some of the events with the finals being played later in the event. So for example, I heard, and I don't know if this is how they eventually did it, I heard that the fastest skater, you might see the preliminary rounds early and then see the final later in the night, which I think is a really cool idea because, you know, seeing it all the way through takes away some of that anticipation of seeing that one-on-one showdown between, well, Connor McDavid and whoever to see who's going to win the fastest skater. So I like the idea of trying to separate the finals from the prelim rounds, if in fact it's what they're doing this year.
And it really feeds into the lack of attention span for the fans. It just gives them a lot of variety.
It's absolutely true. Cool.
Yeah. Before we go, special announcement. We kind of talked about it with Kristen Shilton earlier, the fact that we will all be at All-Star. There's a specific reason that I will be at All-Star. Wish is going to cover the thing from start to finish, obviously. But the reason that both of us will be together at All-Star is because there will be a special edition of The Drop happening live at All-Star. In fact, it will be on Saturday at 2:30 p.m. on ESPN Twitter and ESPN Plus, directly before the actual All-Star game, which will be on ABC. So you can essentially call us the pre-show, the Drop All-Star special leading in to the All-Star game. Wish, it's going to be super exciting. Can't wait to be there, bud.
It's going to be so fantastic. We're going to be at the arena, outside the arena. Arda and I already have some really cool stuff lined up for the days leading up to the live show. And looking forward to seeing everybody down there, man. It's the first time we've done the show outside the studio, I think, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
So that's going to be Saturday, February 4th, right before the All-Star game, 2:30 p.m. Again, it's going to be on ESPN Twitter and on ESPN Plus. We're going to be live. Wish mentioned we're going to have some great guests and some fun ideas. We're going to be collecting content all week at All-Star, so you know it's going to be a great time. Definitely check out that episode live. And thank you for checking out this episode. See you next time on The Drop.